Okay, so in our last video, we studied for loops, and we saw how they were a little bit different than while loops. For loops, once again, should be used if you know how many times the loop is going to run. So for instance, if I just asked you to print, let's say the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row, well, I know how many times to run the loop. I can just run it 5 times. All right. A while loop could be used to do this as well, but a while loop generally is used when you don't know how many times the loop is going to run, like the password program. We don't know how many times the user is going to guess something incorrectly. So a while loop would be best for something like that. So if I try to write this program up here. So let's say I want to use a for loop to print that. So I'm going to say for int w. You can usually we use I, but you can use any variable that you want here. I'm going to use w, and I'm going to start it at 1. So not always, but usually this starts at the very first value that you want to print. Okay. Then I'm going to run this loop as long as w is less than or equal to 5, and then I'm going to say w plus plus. Okay, so what am I going to do inside this loop? What do I want to repeat over and over again? Well, I want to print w. So not print line, I want to say print, and that will keep it on the same line. So the very first value of w is 1, and this is true. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to print 1. So that prints the first one. And then we come up here and we add 1 to w. So w is going to be 2. This is still true. So we're going to print 2. Then we come up here. W is going to be 3. True. Print 3. W is going to be 4. True. Print 4. W is going to be 5. This is still true. So we're going to print 5. And then W is going to get up to 6. But then this is false. So then we stop. Let me just make sure that this works. Okay, yeah. So we print the numbers 1 to 5. Of course, you could do this without a loop. You could print the numbers 1 to 5 without a loop, but the benefit to doing it this way. Let's pretend the user said enter, or pretend we asked the user for how many ints, or let's just say how many ints. And let's say they enter 8. So then let's print the numbers 1 through 8. So whatever they enter here, that's how many numbers you're going to print. And then you would have to use a loop to do this. All right. So real quick. Hopefully you would know how to do something like that. So we set up our scanner. Okay, and then we're going to ask, let me just reduce my code a bit here so you can see the top. So system.out.print how many ints, and then just make a little variable called n, or num, whatever you want to call it. So this represents how many ints. Okay, so that code right there asks the user to enter a number. So I'm going to store that number into num. And then here's the beauty of a loop is that you can just change this 5, just change it to num. So whatever they enter here, whether it be 8 or 100, this loop will run that many times. So watch. Let's say 8. Okay, and then it prints the numbers 1 to 8. Okay, so what is a nested loop? Well, so imagine we put this loop inside of another loop. Okay, let me explain why. Why would we ever want to do that? Well, let's just say we want to repeat this. Let's just say we want to repeat it 3 times. Okay, for some reason you have a program where they enter a size, and then you're going to print the numbers from 1 to that number, and you want to do that 3 times for some reason. Okay, so what you could do is just take this code and put this inside of another loop. Now you need to use a different variable, so I'm going to use t, And this, we just want to make this loop run 3 times. And then, of course, I need to put curly brackets around this other loop. Okay, so basically we have this brand new variable t that goes from 1 up to 3. So this is basically saying let's run this loop 3 times. Now, what are we going to do 3 times? Well, we're going to do this. And if you recall, this loop, this W loop prints 1 row of numbers. Okay, this loop right here prints 1 row, 1 complete row. So all I'm doing is I'm looping that 3 times. Okay, so then I can compile. And okay, let's say 8 again. Oops. Okay, this is actually a good good mistake here. So notice that it did not go to a new line. It printed the 3 rows, but all on the same line. So what we need to do is after we print 1 row, we need to tell it to go to a new line. Okay, so that's what this is for. This says go to a new line. Okay, let's try that one more time. Okay, there we go. Now, wouldn't it be cool to let the user decide how many rows? So instead of just 3 rows, what if we said how many rows? And so the user, let's say they enter 5, and then you would print 5 of these rows. So we could easily do that. We could just ask the user for another. Actually, I'm just going to copy this and paste. And so I'm going to say how many rows. And then I'm going to make a variable called rows equals scan.nextInt. And so instead of this being 3, just change that to rows. And so now we can compile this. And the user has some flexibility. I could enter, let's print the numbers 1 to 9, and I want to do 7 rows. Okay, so it prints the numbers 1 to 9 7 times. Okay, so that is the gist of a loop inside of a loop, which we call a nested loop. You can also have nested while loops. You could even mix it up. You could have a for loop inside of a while loop. You could even have an if statement inside a for loop inside a while loop, and so these structures keep getting buried inside. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense. If it's still a bit confusing, as it can be, you're not alone if you find this confusing. It really is. Then feel free to reach out to me, and we can do another example. Okay.